going on, everyone? So I think the San Antonio Spurs should take a look at Jonathan Kuminga. Right? I want to start by saying it depends on what they would have to give up. Right? Like, you're not giving up any of like your key core guys. You're not trading Harper or Stephon Castle or anything like that. Right? You're not trading De'Aaron Fox. You're not doing anything like that. But the Spurs could really use kind of consolidation trade. Right? They could look to Devin Vassell, a Keldon Johnson. Right? If you're bringing in a Kuminga, maybe even like a Jeremy Sohan. I know a lot of Spurs fans think he's the second coming of Dennis Rodman and the greatest player to ever, put on a Spurs uniform. But the reality is he can't shoot. His defensive versatility is great. But Jonathan Kuminga has more upside and is already a better player right now. Maybe not defensively, but he is. Like, Jonathan Kuminga is a very good basketball player. And the problem is that the Warriors have always been inconsistent with him. Right? Like, the roles in which he plays are all over the place. Like, there's times where the Warriors are looking for him to be essentially the second best player next to Steph Curry, but then don't give him the consistency in order to build that and become that. And then at times will not play him at all, or at times will kind of just play him off the bench and then start. He's had no consistency with the Warriors, right? And I think that that's something that he really needs. It's just find the right team that is willing to invest into him and give him the consistent role. Well, what is something that the Spurs could really use, right? Wing depth, right? Particularly at the 4 or the 3. Kuminga's probably best at the 4. Guy's an athlete, hyper athlete, go get you 20 on any given night, right? Make some plays, play some defense. He does need to kind of buy in and get focused in a little bit, but getting Kuminga could do a couple things for you, right? Gives you another young, upside potential growth who has star potential. I'm not saying he'll ever live up to it, but he does. Right? We've seen the glimpses, we've seen the games, we've seen the moments where he's just, he can't be stopped. Right? Like, there is a version of him that is just tearing up the league. Right? Bring him in, you could have him slotted in at the 4, right? Alongside of Victor Wembanyama, a Carter Bryant, Stephon Castle, and a Dylan Harper. That could be literally your foundation for the foreseeable future. You'd have Jonathan Kuminga locked up. Problem is, he wants $30+ million a year, which, I mean, if it works out, then yes, it's justified, right? If he actually becomes the player that he has shown the ability to be, then yes, it's justified. He might even be underpaid, right? I would look closer to 20 million, right? I'd look closer to 20, maybe 25 million, right? Because again, that 5 million could be the difference between you being a second apron team or not, right? So, but I look at him and I think a Spurs team, they have the system, they have the organizational structure, they have the coaching, they have the player, they have the things that you want alongside him. He's also the kind of player you want alongside De'Aaron Fox and, Victor Wembanyama. You also have somebody in Harrison Barnes that can kind of take him under his wing, kind of help kind of grow and develop him and build him out, right? Like I said, you could do a Devin Vassell for sign and trade for Keldon Johnson, or for Jonathan Kuminga, right? Like, you could do something like that and, match their salaries, right? Now, some people might look at it and go I don't want Kuminga for Devin Vassell. But again, Devin Vassell, 1, regressed last season, which teams are going to take into account. 2, what is his value on the open market? 3, how many teams need a guy like Devin Vassell? Most teams already have that guy. 4, the Spurs have 3 other guys that are all going to play that role, right? And Jonathan Kuminga is bigger, younger, and has more upside and potential and isn't a redundancy, right? So to me, it's if you can turn him into a young player in a Jonathan Kuminga and kind of bet on his potential and upside, even if he never becomes that star, even if he just becomes an Andrew Wiggins type, where it's he's good, but he's not your first or second best player. He's more of a third or fourth option. Right? You need that. You need that in a starting lineup. You need that. You run in 5-on-5, right? So you need that 4th or 5th guy. If he's even that for you and he's clear cut, hey, this guy is the 4th best player on the Spurs, right? Then perfect. Because again, you need that 4th guy. But there is the potential that hey, he's actually the best guy alongside a Victor Wembanyama. I just think somebody like a Devin Vassell is a bit of a redundancy, right, with what you have. Again, you have Dylan Harper, you have Stephon Castle, you have De'Aaron Fox. What is Dylan Harper? Dylan Harper's what, the 4th or 5th option? What you want him to be, he's not going to be able to be at this point if you're going to properly develop your young guys. Right? So move off of Devin Vassell, get off of his contract. Right? and bring in a guy like a Jonathan Kuminga. Or, I mean, the other route is you could stack a couple guys if you wanted to, like, put a package around Keldon Johnson in some pieces to go get him, or, maybe you're sending Harrison Barnes back, but I don't like I'd want to keep Harrison Barnes. I think him as one of the veterans on this team gives you that 3-and-D shooting. Plus, I think he'd be really good for guys like Carter Bryant, for guys like Julian Champagnie, for guys like a Jonathan Kuminga you bring in, right? And Harrison Barnes can kind of relate to Jonathan Kuminga, because Harrison Barnes was kind of in that role at times. He got more consistency and actually became like a huge part during that original championship run for the Warriors. But there were times where it was kind of, a little all over the place, right? Especially before Kerr, right? And then Kerr ended up bringing Iguodala off the bench, right? But like, Harrison Barnes knows what it was like to have this inconsistent role, and, get games where it's like, hey, we need you to be the guy, and then games where you're off the bench. And so he can kind of, connect, I think, in a lot of ways. And, hey, I was on the Warriors. I was in your spot. I know how you feel, right? But look, I made a career out of it. Even if he just becomes, let's say Jonathan Kuminga just becomes a Harrison Barnes. That's great. Like, a legit, sizable, versatile 3-and-D guy that can defend 1 through 5, right? Like, that's great. Right? The Spurs could use somebody like that. So I really do think that the Spurs should kind of put their hat in the ring and bring in and look to add a guy like a Jonathan Kuminga, and see, like, what can you do with him, right? Like, to me, again, it's just, if you have to give up like Devin Vassell plus like 3 firsts or something, then no, I wouldn't do anything like that. But you're seeing there are several teams that are in negotiations or in talks to try to acquire Kuminga via sign and trade. But like, all of those teams like Suns have already bailed out. They're like, yeah, not happening, right? So teams might end up washing themselves out. Kuminga doesn't want to go back to the Warriors. So if you're the Spurs, can you kind of come in and just be like, hey, right? Like, if you have to give up like an asset or two, because Spurs, again, at some point, the Spurs are going to have to take a risk. At some point, the Spurs are going to have to take a chance on a guy like a Kuminga. I'm not saying it has to be Kuminga, but at some point, you're going to have to make some decisions, right? You don't have to necessarily make it right now, but Kuminga might be a guy that's worth it. Right? Like, you've seen the potential, you've seen the upside, you've seen the growth, you've seen what he can do on any given night. Can you just kind of hone that in and get him kind of focused and bought in, particularly on the defensive side and stuff like that? All of a sudden, you might look at this and be like, wow, this was a steal. It just depends on Kuminga. But let's keep in mind, he's going to be motivated. He's going to want to show the Warriors, like, hey, you messed up. Like, he might be the best version of himself with the Spurs, because again, he's going to want to kind of prove himself and kind of give the bird to these teams. So I don't know. It's just kind of a thought. I'm not saying it's something that they have to. Like, if they don't do it, it's like, oh, what are the Spurs doing? Like, no. Like, it's somebody that I think makes some sense. It's somebody that I think that there is an argument for, that comes in, fits your core, fits your foundation, that I think you can kind of unlock and make just better. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos. Truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.